Welcome to Elevate the Conversation podcast. Today we're going to be talking about detox. How do you know that you need a detox? What does that mean? What kind of detoxes are there? My name is Gina Donahue. I'm your host, and my guest today is Dr. Rebecca Sarlea.
Hello.
So Dr. Rebecca is a chiropractor, so I really would appreciate hearing her assessment on how you know people need a detox.
Well, I think detox is a great subject to talk about today. It comes up in so many conversations with patients. Really the main thing that we're looking for in my assessment is, where is the patient starting off? Is the patient starting off in a state of unbalance? And how do we bring that patient to a state of balance? Some physical characteristics that come up a lot when I recognize that patients really need to focus on this detoxing things out of their body is chronic fatigue. That's one thing that we talk about in their first visit is, Doc, I'm always so tired. I said, okay, well, how much sleep do you get, right? So just chronic fatigue, even in their face, and their skin is dull. I can see that kind of physically, I can see that on their skin and on their face. A second thing that we talk about also is, what kind of foods are you eating, right? We know that everything that comes into your body is really important. So we talk about, what type of foods. And then if we know that they're not eating foods that are great for their body, then that's another subject of, maybe it's time to talk about resetting the body and helping it bring it back to balance. The other thing is, when we do our thermography scan, if we see a lot of inflammation coming up in the organ areas in this region here, if we find a lot of inflammation in those areas, then we know that those filtering organs, like around the liver, kidney, gallbladder, those areas are struggling. So if we have inflammation in the areas of T8, T9, and T10 that we can see on the thermography scan, then we know that those organs are struggling. So that's another physical sign that I talk to my patients about, saying, hey, you know what? All of these things that normally help you get rid of toxins in your body, they're struggling. So let's talk about detox.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Those are the top three.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm doing an assessment on patients, part of what makes me think about whether or not they need a detox, similar, depending on what their skin looks like and if they're talking about fatigue, aches and pains. But one thing that I want to really point out is that there are many different types of toxins that come into the body. And when we talk about needing to detox, we have to remember that we have multiple organ systems that are involved in our detox pathways, and we have multiple different types of toxins. And so they're all going to cause different symptoms and different problems in the body. Mm-hmm. And so one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this podcast today is because people throw around the term detox as though it has one single meaning, and it doesn't. We can do a liver detox, a metabolic detox, a hormone detox, a mycotoxin detox, a heavy metal detox, environmental detox. And then we have to think about, depending on what types of toxins are currently circulating around somebody's body, we have to think about which organ systems currently need the most support, and then sort of working our way through that detox process in a way that is safe. Because part of the body's detox pathway is to get a hold of toxins and bind them to our bile, and then sometimes they get stuck sort of recirculating in our system. But our body has a pathway set up to deal with toxins. And so we get a lot of toxins that are stored in our fat cells. And if we suddenly say, okay, I want to do a detox and I'm just going to jump in and start detoxing, we can actually mobilize and release a whole load of toxins that were kind of stable in a moment. And now we've just dumped them into the system. And if we didn't do a proper detox, we're going to make ourselves extremely sick. We can actually trigger significant inflammation. You can even damage your liver or your kidneys by doing a detox at an inappropriate time. So when I talk about detox, I like to talk about what are you detoxing? What's the point of the detox? What is it that you're trying to accomplish, and why do you think you need a detox? So let's try and maybe focus in on a single subject. So I know that for me, when I do assessments, I have a lot of men or women who come in with hormone imbalance, and particularly a woman who has been taking birth control pills or some kind of hormonal contraceptive, or a woman who comes in who has symptoms of estrogen dominance. So heavy periods, symptomatic periods, frequent periods. That woman needs detox support. So her estrogen, her natural estrogen, or the estrogen she's taking by mouth, is not being cleared out properly. So we need to focus in on micronutrients that are beneficial, diet and lifestyle, of course, and then also really understand what do our liver numbers look like, and what do our kidney numbers look like, in order to know how aggressively do we start a detox. So if you were going to think about symptoms of hormone dysfunction or hormone dysregulation, what are some of the things that you would notice on your assessment that would make you think, oh, I think maybe estrogen is a problem in this person?
A lot of the times I have women who come in and they present with a lot of inflammation in the anterior lower abdominal region. I find chronic misalignments, subluxations, right, in the area of the anterior hip. I find that very consistent with estrogen and any sort of hormonal imbalance in women. We just tend to be very bloated here. And the hips tend to be very mobile, and they get very misaligned in the front. So it's something that I've noticed a lot of my females with estrogen dominance.
Okay. So how would you go about treating that? What would be your recommendations for a woman who is estrogen dominant?
So I really would recommend always getting adjusted, because it's really important to maintain spinal health. But chiropractic and functional medicine just go along hand in hand in that way. So I feel like my job is to identify those issues, and then refer that patient to the best practitioner that's possible, which is you.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
So, getting them adjusted, having the conversation, and not just dumping them on you, but really teaching them, hey, you know what? These are some things I'm noticing. Do you have these symptoms? Yeah, doc, I have these symptoms all the time. You know what? I think this is worth exploring into a deeper conversation, and I think that I can help you with certain things. But I want us to get everything, right? I want us to be able to comprehensively look at your body and bring everything back in your body. So I do recommend them doing blood work with a functional medicine practitioner, specifically Elevate. But yes, that's what I usually recommend my patients is, hey, let's do blood work and let's verify those things, right? Because we're finding these physical things in your body. Let's make sure that they're there.
Yeah, and I agree. That's why I love working with you, because there are so for me, when I'm concerned about estrogen dominance or estrogen acting as a toxin in a woman's body, first I want to do some testing. I want to verify my suspicion. Again, I want to take a look at organ function, and then we have to talk about, okay, so if you're on birth control and you need to take birth control for pregnancy prevention, then how do we keep your body as healthy as possible, still eliminating estrogens if you're taking a pill? Or can we maybe transition to non-hormonal birth control options? So I'm a very big advocate of non-hormonal birth control, and I do think, honestly, that has to be a conversation when we're talking about detox. Because if you have difficulty, if you're a person whose genetics and or diet or lifestyle complicate your ability to clean out estrogen, then it suggests that you are likely to have difficulty detoxing environmental toxins and other toxins as well.
Yep.
So it all does, there is an interplay with all of those different systems. But again, we'll see estrogen as being a primary problem. So I would take a look at organ function, and then we would talk about contraception options, and then we would prepare the body for either a gentle detox or a more targeted, aggressive detox. And B vitamins, magnesium are very important cofactors in your ability to break down toxins and eliminate estrogen, but also getting an idea of how is your body breaking down and eliminating your estrogen. So if there are things like the Dutch test, which give us really helpful information on what is your body doing, are your toxins, are the breakdowns of estrogen actually being toxic and more inflammatory in your body. So estrogen detox is actually quite a complex matter to talk about and get assessed. And then the treatment plan has to be really individualized for each woman, where she is in her life, what her goals are, and how she's going to manage other aspects of her diet, of her lifestyle. So other issues that are involved in estrogen detox include environmental factors, so environmental toxins or additional toxic burden. So what are things that you recommend to women when it comes to avoiding environmental toxins?
Oh, that's a really great one too. Not just what we put in our body, but what we're surrounded by, and also physically put on our body with our own hands. I notice a lot of women that come in and they have these estrogen dominance issues. They're always sporting a lot of perfumes, like all of these great perfumes. They are constantly covered in artificial scents. We also notice a lot of women with makeup. What are their makeup choices? So I sit down and I talk to my patients. Hey, you know what? I noticed you enjoy using perfume. Were you aware that artificial scents can actually disrupt your endocrine system? And your endocrine system is responsible for regulating your hormones. And they don't even know. So we also talk about what makeup products they're using, because some makeup products actually have heavy metals. So, and a lot of people don't even know that things like talc, they can even have like heavy irons, and you're constantly putting those things on your face, and body lotions and perfumes. You're constantly overloading your endocrine system with all of these artificial smells, and it's just producing estrogen in your body. And a way that we can switch those things is I have the conversation with patients about maybe switching to essential oils. Essential oils are researched to not be endocrine disruptors. They're actually part of our nature. Our nose can actually recognize artificial versus non-artificial smells and can make those changes appropriately in our body. So I recommend women replacing their perfumes with things like maybe orange blossom oil or lemon, and diffusing in their homes, if they want like home fragrances, essential oils. And then we talk about makeup products. There's a wonderful website called Environmental Working Group that actually rates products. So we talk about those, how to replace those more toxic items with safer items.
And I do want to just make a quick word of caution, because lavender is estrogen supportive. So we do have to be careful with using lavender, especially on children. There are studies which show that young males that use lavender frequently or have been exposed to lavender frequently will grow breast tissue.
Oh, wow.
So even
I always recommend orange oil.
Yes.
Orange, like citrus oils. I tend to say like, hey, if you're going to do lavender, always do it in a mix.
Yeah.
So do it in a blend, but usually orange blossom oils, like all the floral oils, like jasmine, those are really, really great, and a little bit safer, not so estrogen supportive.
Yes. And so I do want to just clarify what endocrine disruption means. Endocrine disruptors are keys that fit into a receptor or a lock. And in order for a hormone to bind properly to a lock, it has to be shaped a certain way, and then it sort of fits in and locks into that receptor to turn it on or activate it. But there are substances that can bind to our hormone receptors. They're similar enough in shape to bind to the receptor, but then they block the ability of your actual hormone to get to that receptor. So when it comes to endocrine disruptors, we have different types of endocrine disruptors that are going to bind to those receptors and either make it so that your natural hormone can't bind to it, or will turn it on as though it's a hormone itself. And so when we talk about detoxing, we have to really understand that we're talking to a certain extent about supporting your hormone receptors so that they are in a proper position and place to be able to allow your natural hormones to bind to them and function properly. So this is where it gets to be very scientific, lots of organic chemistry, and you don't need to know all that. You just have to understand that getting rid of toxins, supporting proper hormone regulation and function, there's a lot of chemistry and a lot of steps involved. So first we have to eliminate environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors, but then we also have to get your natural hormone secreting organs to function properly, and we have to get your receptors to be in a state of calm so that they can receive your hormones. So I just wanted to clarify that. And so yes, I recommend the environmental working group when it comes to things like makeup, but also home care products.
Oh, yes.
And so we have a lot of products that we use in our home. Bleach is an endocrine disruptor. So bleach is actually terrible for your lungs, but it's also terrible for your hormone system. And things like fragranced laundry detergent, cleaning spray products, plastics, having plastics in the home for food storage. So the BPA that we're always hearing about. And then organic solvents that are used in things like to manufacture things like plastic and plastic products. Flame retardants, which are required by law to be on all pajamas. Baby pajamas are required to be fire resistant, and the toxins that are in flame retardants are incredibly toxic. So you're swathing your baby, keeping your baby what you think is nice and comfy, cozy. Meanwhile, they've got these toxins in their clothing leaching into their entire body, throughout their entire skin. So being really mindful of clean home products is important, but not just getting on these message boards and Facebook groups with people who have very strong opinions, but no research. So that's why I really recommend the Environmental Working Group, because it's actually a group of scientists. Dr. Mark Hyman recommends the EWG, and he's the founder, one of the founders of the Institute for Functional Medicine. So when it comes to getting your resources for clean products, I want to make sure that we're very science-based.
Why don't we include the link below?
Yeah, so we'll include the link below this podcast so that you can go to the EWG website, and then they have a handbook for free that you can get access to for clean products.
And if you can't find your product on EWG, you can also go to that product's ingredient list, and you can individually look at the first top 5 ingredients and see, okay, are the top 5 ingredients in this product, maybe they don't have the product, but they have the ingredients individually listed with health safety ratings.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you recommend for patients right off the bat to replace in their home? So no plastic, so maybe something like glass.
Yep, glass. I recommend... I'm actually sort of passionate about trying to live somewhat of a clean or an environmentally friendly lifestyle. So I don't buy my laundry detergent in plastic containers. I buy the little sheets. I get my sheets from Grove. I love Grove. It's online, and they ship things right to your house. And so they are laundry sheets that work amazing. There are a lot of different laundry sheets. And then getting the woolen balls for your dryer.
Sheets.
Yep. And then I put like lemon or different kinds of essential oils on my wool balls, and my cat likes to play with them as well. So I sometimes have to go searching for them in the house because she'll get in the laundry basket and get rid of them. But then you have to replace them eventually. But the woolen balls are great. And then
what about bed sheets?
Yeah, bed sheets.
Because you said laundry stuff, they're also required to have flame retardant. What about organic cottons?
Yep, so organic cotton bed sheets, which you can purchase. A lot of different places offer those.
I think even Target has them.
Yep.
Major box stores.
Yep. And then From Grove, I have the glass bottles, the glass spray jars, spray bottles, and then you can get essential oil, different cleaning concentrate, and then you just refill your glass spray bottle, and they have them for shower, multi-purpose, and glass.
Nice.
And they're great, and they last a long time.
Yeah, so those are some awesome recommendations for home.
So some other recommendations for home products or home support for detox would be, I know a lot of people have a really hard time getting rid of bleach because it does whiten things. So what I do for cleaning my bathroom is I add the Grove multi-purpose cleaner to a glass spray bottle, but instead of filling it with water, I fill it with hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, that's
because
great.
Hydrogen peroxide will lyse open any cell wall. It doesn't have a smell. So if you've got mold or bacteria living in your bathroom, hydrogen peroxide will eliminate that. And then the Grove has those really nicely scented. I like the multi-purpose cleaner. It's got a pleasant smell to it, and you have a couple different options. And then when it comes to laundry, replacing bleach, I use vinegar and baking soda. So you would use equal amounts of each, and you could use a half a cup to a cup of each. It's inexpensive. And, it's like, it's magic because you pour them in together and you watch but it really does work.
Yep.
With my youngest child, I used natural diapers. So that was actually how I learned about the whole baking soda vinegar thing, because I used to wash her diapers regularly, and that's what I did. And it worked so well that I actually stopped using bleach a long time ago for laundry because the baking soda and white vinegar works so well.
What about borax? A lot of people talk about borax, and I've wanted to experiment with it myself.
So I've actually recommended borax drinks to patients in the past. I don't want people to go off on that because that's a whole nother subject. But borax, if you want to think about even supporting your body, not just not using something toxic, but potentially even supporting your body, borax is a great cleaner. And boron helps to actually improve neurological health. It can help promote hormone balance, and it is an essential element that is not always easily consumed in our diets today.
And boron is in borax.
Yeah, that's what it's made out of. Yep.
Okay, wow.
Yep.
Look at that. So we could replace bleach with borax and actually help our brain and help our body.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. And it's not expensive. So I always think that's
Cheers
a nice
to that.
option. Yes. So another type of detox that people often are interested in doing is a gut detox.
Oh, yep.
So tell
Gut
me
health.
what makes you think people need a gut detox?
So there are some physical things that pop up with patients for sure. Endocrine has its own things, liver has its own things, but when it comes to the gut, I always find that patients have a lot of tension in their upper abdominal region, especially around underneath the ribs here. Sometimes they can complain of, doc, I always have a lot of rib tension here. I always have a lot of tension in the front part of my stomach where I always feel comfortable hunched over, or I just have a lot of tension through the middle of my back. And when you actually feel around on these patients' stomach, we can find that their stomach, from all of that acidity and all of that imbalance, their stomach is actually up here, higher than it should be, which can contribute to hernias. So something I found with all of these gut patients is that their stomach is up high. So what we can do to help that is we can do some soft tissue work and massage the stomach and actually do some very specific procedures to release that tension in the upper stomach, to give it a little bit more relaxed so that gastric air bubble has room to actually be there in the stomach. So those are some of the things. And also a lot of patients with intestinal discomfort, I just find a lot of tenderness and bloating through this area. And a lot of times they'll complain of gas, a lot of flatulence. So what are some of the things that you see?
So we're going to have like a whole series of conversations about gut health, because you just talked about 7 different things pretty much that could be happening to somebody. So if we want to stick primarily with detox as a focus, what's really important to recognize is that part of our detox pathway is elimination, right? And so we have to be moving our bowels regularly. And you can actually tell how well your gut thinks it's moving your bowels based on looking at your stool. So if you tend to have stool that's small little balls or hard little balls or little balls that are all stuck together, or a stool that's got cracks in it, that tells us that your gut's not working properly. You may have some dysbiosis or overgrowth of methane producing bacteria. You may not be drinking enough water. You may not be eating enough fiber, or you may have slowed gut motility so that food is just staying in your system longer than it should, so it's getting more dehydrated on its way out. And I always tell people, you can move your bowels every day and still be constipated. Constipation doesn't necessarily mean that you're not emptying your bowels a little bit each day. It means you're not completely evacuating your bowels,
which is really important.
And it's really important to understand your anatomy. So your colon actually starts here, and it comes up and goes across and then goes down and exits. And so where you're talking about right here as being often tender can be because people have had stool sort of sitting all the way up into their transverse colon, and then that stool starts to put pressure up onto the stomach, and especially then you can get air trapped in the colon. Then that air causes an air pocket, and then that's putting constant pressure on your stomach or up to your diaphragm. And if you get constipated badly enough, you can actually get pain on your right upper quadrant because you're having stool pushing on your liver. Your liver actually should come down below your rib cage a little bit naturally, but then if you've got stool sort of stuck all the way over here, you're putting pressure up on your gallbladder, the bottom of your liver.
Yep.
So lots to talk about there.
I think that would be a really good episode.
Yeah, just gut health. So then when we have tenderness across the abdomen here around your belly button, that is your small intestines kind of all sit right in here. And so when we start to get air pockets, you can even push on your belly. It can be a lot of fun. It's moving air pockets around, It
sounds like a squishing.
It's like popping, packing bubbles, It's like, I love doing that. But you can, if you've got bubbles sort of all across your abdomen here, that can be because you've got some small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and you've got fermenting bacteria in your small intestine where they don't belong.
Which SIBO would be another great episode.
Yeah. But when it comes to detoxing, if the more toxic that your colon becomes, the more toxic burden that it has to try and eliminate, that starts to affect the ability of the colonocytes or the colon cells to function, and then that can even affect the motility of your colon. So your colon just becomes overwhelmed. It stops contracting properly, and it just gets more and more filled with toxic burden. So before you start any kind of a detox program, you have to get the colon cleaned out. I would not recommend starting any detox of any sort, endocrine, metabolic, liver, no detox until you're pooping and you've got your colon functioning. Because if we are not eliminating, you're only going to get more toxic, because you're going to mobilize and release stored toxins. They're going to dump into your colon, and then you're going to have these toxins moving, entering into your tissues, making you more sick, just increasing that toxic soup.
So what's a good bowel movement look like? What are some things that people need to look for when they evacuate their bowel? We talked about cracks and small. Those are abnormal findings. What is something, that people should look for?
So the perfect poop, we'll put another link on the website or below the podcast for the Bristol stool scale. So the perfect poop is number 4 on the Bristol stool scale. It is a soft stool that is easy to pass with no cracks in it. And we do want it to be brown in color. Okay. When you start to see your stool getting a little bit lighter or more gray, then that suggests that we're not having enough digestive enzymes. So much we can tell about your poop. I love talking about poop.
Well, it's important.
It is important. So we want it to be on the softer side. Even a type 5 small fluffy pieces is fine. Okay. So between a 4 and a 5 is really what we're shooting for. And we want you to be able to sit down and feel like you have completely emptied your bowels.
Okay.
1 to 2 to even 3 times a day. Skipping days may be your normal, but it is not normal. A daily bowel movement, at least 1 a day, is what we're shooting for.
Okay. Yeah, that's great information. That's a good starting point for patients to kind of see, oh, I am not having a daily bowel movement. I might need to talk to my doctor about this.
Yep. So just general foundations of promoting good gut health is making sure that you're getting plenty of fiber in your diet and making sure that you're drinking plenty of water and that you're moving, because your gut movement is sort of dependent on your body movement. So we want you exercising, moving, deep breathing.
Do you find patients ask you, well, doc, I'm drinking all day. Well, what are they drinking? Are they drinking water, or are they drinking soft beverages, like something like a Coca-Cola, right? Maybe that's actually contributing to some of those gut health imbalances.
Yes.
Wasn't there something recently about Coca-Cola in the news?
Yes. So Coca-Cola just recently lost a class action lawsuit because they are using forever chemicals in their products.
Tell people why that's so bad.
Because they don't ever leave your body or the environment.
Forever. Crazy. Let's not drink that.
Yeah.
Let's drink water.
Yeah.
Or tea.
Yes. So I'm so glad you talked about what are we drinking all day, because that's a perfect segue into metabolic detox.
Yes.
Yes. So I do want to do a dedicated podcast about metabolic detox because there's a lot to unpack, but let's just sort of define it. So how do you define what a metabolic detox would be?
Well, metabolic is, what are we eating, right? What are we putting in our bodies? We're talking about drinking, right? What type of beverages are you drinking? What type of foods are you eating, right? So those are all things that we talk about with my patients is, okay, what type of foods are you eating, right? How is that affecting your, how are you digesting? Are you using probiotics? Are you using prebiotics? Are you using digestive enzymes? Those are some of the questions that we ask people to begin with. And then just general bloating. And, if you're not metabolizing things in your body, sometimes that can even present as whole body soreness. Sometimes patients can complain of, doc, just my entire body is sore. So those are some signs that I look for when I'm assessing a patient from a chiropractic standpoint. And I know that there's some things that you look at too.
Yep. So for me, when I talk about metabolic detox, I'm really thinking about your metabolism. And so that has a lot to do with your energy regulation and your blood sugar sensitivity and your cholesterol. So when people have what's called metabolic syndrome, it's kind of the trifecta. So they would either have, they often have high blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, and insulin resistance. So when you talk about a metabolic detox, you really can't unpack that or remove that from overall liver health, because your liver is very, very sensitive to your metabolism. So that's why we'll have a whole dedicated podcast about this, because understanding fatty liver disease, what that means, where that comes from, it's a lot of science and it's a lot of biology and understanding your body.
But you're going to make it easy to understand.
I do. I make it easy to understand. So thank you so much for joining Elevate the Conversation podcast, and thanks to Dr. Rebecca for being with us today.
It was so nice.
And we will see you in our next podcast together.
See you.